Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, wherever you're tuning in, YouTube, Spotify, or on LinkedIn. Welcome to NOS, Nubs of Steel, the podcast with a very cool name, but even better guests. And I have one of those better guests here with me today. He is father of six, husband, and a leader. Heinrich Swanepoel. Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Hey, Janai, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we started, you were telling me about your recent move from Pretoria to sunny Cape Town. Can you
Yes.
give us a little bit more insight into why that was a decision that you and your family made to leave Gauteng and go join the rest of the tech world in
Okay.
TPT?
Yeah, I think I've been always wanted to move down to Cape Town. My wife actually comes from Cape Town,
Okay.
and it was just, I think the timing and everything was perfect. And we're quite flexible at the office, so we've got full remote.
Okay.
So I was able to make the move, and I said to her, if we're not going to do it now while the kids are still young, we're never going to do it. So let's opt for it. We move closer to our parents and our family, and we've got some support with the kids. So we made the move last year, October, and not looking back as yet. I think sort of we've just had summer. I think winter's going to be a different game. We're not used to sort of rain in the winter. I grew up my whole life in Gauteng, so it's going to be interesting sort of having winter rain. So, but looking forward to it.
Does PaySpace have offices in Cape Town?
So we don't have any offices. We're literally sort of a full remote organization.
That is now since the dreaded C word.
Since, yes. So we did have offices in Cape Town, and I think we had about 3 or 4 branches. But after 2020, seeing what is capable with remote work, we've sort of cancelled. We've got like remote work policies. We hire these co-working spaces where guys can go and sit, but mostly remote. I think sort of we enjoy remote since 2020, and we've not looked back. So we're a full remote company.
Okay. PaySpace was recently purchased by a very large HR and payroll organization, Deel. Tell us a little bit more about that acquisition and how that came about.
So I think it's actually quite a cool story. So PaySpace founders started the business back in 2001, and really had this idea of creating a technology platform where they've got one single source where they can update their payroll at one stage and have sort of multiple companies having access to the latest and greatest. And they wanted to take over the world, but like legislation is tough, and building software is tough, and being able to bootstrap a tech is not always the easiest things. So I think sort of last year we were acquired by Deel. Still very unfamiliar, I think, in Africa, but they'll know the name quite shortly. I think it has grown from strength to strength. I think they've just released $800 million in ARR and just over 5 years. So it's a really phenomenal unicorn that's on its way. But they are changing the way in which the way we do payroll and HR, and we were sort of lucky enough to be acquired by them and sort of helping them take payroll global. So an interesting speed that we're traveling at and sort of rolling out countries.
Now, you've been, without giving away your age, how many years have you been in the payroll HR technology space?
So it's close to 20 years.
20 years.
Yes.
I'm assuming back in the day when it was still softline VIP, you were one of the salespeople there, moving and making moves for the organization.
Yeah, I think I started my career in IT and had a web development company, and
your own company.
our own company, and we were a couple of mates, like 3 mates, sort of
Okay.
doing web development, and they were all sort of programmers. I was sort of just selling for them.
Okay.
They were the clever ones, I think. And the one friend of mine, he actually said to me, there's this company, it's a consulting company, they're doing payroll, why don't we apply? And I applied for the position with him, and we both got in. And it was then VIP payroll. Started as a consultant, was fortunate to sort of saw a sales opening and went for it, and haven't looked back. I think it was a, I want to say, I sometimes refer to it as the heydays, because I
Yeah.
think sort of the company and the growth and the people and the culture was something unreal. And yeah, sort of led me from strength to strength in my sales career. And I think sort of it was a eye opener about what you can do in sales, and especially if you believe in your product. I think that was key critical.
Okay. Now, over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of changes in technology, specific here in South Africa, with cloud coming into play, companies like PaySpace making a dominant play in the payroll space, companies like Zero making a dominant play in the accounting space. What significant changes have you personally seen in your industry over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think like touching on that sales story is when we started selling, VIP was quite dominant in South Africa, and it was. I don't think we were selling anything new. I think we were selling a service that was unknown for it. Was sort of, you knew that when you bought our software that you would be serviced by the best consultants, the best support, and some of I want to say people that's really in it for the better of a company. And over, I want to say there was another opportunity to actually take it into Africa, and I was one of the sales guys that actually put my hand up. I didn't have a wife or kids, and I wanted to see a little bit of African. Got to travel into Africa, and there was like knocking on doors and seeing people, and they would ask things like, how many customers do you have? We at that stage then had like 0 customers. So it was a cool time to actually sell. But also, to your question, a lot of them were doing manual things, and you were talking about cloud and technology, etc.
Yep.
And we were able to see our companies leapfrog in technology, and I think sort of that's still massive in Africa, where we normally a couple of years behind, and we tend to really understand, I want to say, the grind behind doing things.
Yep.
And we tend to sort of not adopt too quickly. But I think the most significant changes we've seen, or for me, what I've seen is companies that's able to leapfrog and take that risk. And it's actually like common practice for them. And I think sort of that's the one catalyst in Africa, is the ability to just jump from technology to technology and not sort of adapt each one. We sort of tend to hold on to something, and as something grows and gets outdated, we make quite a significant jump to the new software. So that's been, I want to say, sort of for me, the things I've seen is companies going from manual to quite automated, or going from manual to complete cloud, and digitizing everything, like leave forms, etc.
You mentioned playing in both in spaces outside of South Africa as well. Do you find that companies or company owners outside of South Africa, they tend to adopt technology a little bit faster than the South African business owner?
It's an interesting question. I think sort of it depends on the leader. It is hard doing business in Africa. It is not easy. I think I've been fortunate enough also to start up a few businesses in my career, and it is hard. And making choices that sort of benefits your business is probably one of the toughest things. And I'm a firm believer if it helps grow the business, it is worth implementing. But yes, cultures, tech is different all over. I think if you take like places like East Africa, the adoption of technology is just like they are on a different scale in terms of payments, communication, etc. And with SADC, I think we're a bit more. I don't want to say old-fashioned, but in a way, we sort of want to see if it really works, and if it works, then we'll sort of invest and test it out. But we
So wait
also,
for some other guinea pigs to jump on first.
yes.
Okay.
But where I think we very much the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but I think it's something we tend to sort of follow quite hard, is seeing if it works first and then adopting it.
Okay. You mentioned something interesting earlier about the leader of said organization. It depends on said leader. What is your, leadership approach as head of growth at PaySpace? I'm assuming that you have a team under you. What is your approach to leadership, and what sort of philosophies do you follow?
Yes, it's tough. Well, they said, I think for me, it's always been. I think you should stay grounded. It's very important to be able to shift between what sort of that future looks like, as well as go into an operational level and understanding what the sales guys or the partner guys or the managed service guys are actually doing. And for me, a leader should be able to transition between those. And then I think the biggest thing for me personally as well is being able to reinvent yourself constantly. We get so used to, or I can take my list, you get sometimes stuck and you sort of feel stuck for a year, 2 or 5. But it's able to reinvent yourself, sort of try new things, adopt new principles, and look at things from a different perspective.
Okay, and what are those things that you do? So from a personal development perspective, is there certain habits that you've adopted over the years? What keeps you, motivated, successful, and productive?
Probably one of my biggest things is I'm a very big optimist and believe in everything. It's also probably a big downfall for me. But I am an early adopter, so when there was ice baths, I started taking ice baths. I've stopped now. But I think being an early adopter and trying everything for me has always been, ever since I can remember, I've tried literally everything and see if it works for me, and sort of keeping the good. But I think as I've grown a little bit older, sort of trying to just stay healthy is very, very important. And learning. I think we tend to sort of get stuck and think we know everything to a certain extent, and there's constantly new ways of doing things. So I've subscribed to cool things in way of learning. I think something that I've loved over the years is something like Masterclass. They've got quite a cool learning paths with different sort of celebrities teaching the way they do things. And I like Audible, so I like at least do one book a month or more.
What are you reading right now?
So I'm in between 2 books. I'm busy with Diary of a CEO. It's quite a nice one, and then the other one is a book called Boundaries. It's when to say yes and how to say no. Yeah. So.
Do you have a problem saying no, Daniel?
Tonight, I think most salespeople will lie if they say yes. But yes, we all. I've got a big problem saying no. I think sort of there's so much happening at the speed it's happening, and sort of making decisions quick is sometimes hard. So it's difficult saying no. So I tend to sort of leave certain decisions longer than I should have, and just think it a little bit through. But yes, for me, saying no is quite difficult.
You mentioned earlier you avid workouts. You do the ice baths, or you used to do the ice baths. Recently saw a post of yours on LinkedIn at the top of a hill. Was it mountain biking you did?
Yeah, so Flip, the area where I stay, it is next level in mountain biking, and I've really sort of enjoyed just getting back on the bicycle and just going out for an hour, taking in the views, hopefully not falling and breaking a bloody shoulder, but it is literally, yeah, we're staying close to the Paul Mountain, and just the scenery is just, I want to say, very rewarding. And going out and seeing this beautiful place.
Was that one of the decisions to move to Cape Town, to get that work-life balance a little bit more synced? Because I'm seeing you a little bit more active these days since you had made that switch to moving to Cape Town.
I think the location just lends itself to a little bit more, because I think sort of it gets late, or the sun actually sets a little bit later, so there's opportunity to go out a little bit later. But yes, it is a little bit more outdoor lifestyle that we wanted to give to the children. And but work-life balance, I don't think there's something like work-life balance. It's sort of, you're either doing sort of work good and then neglecting something, or sort of doing life good and then neglecting work.
Especially since you work from home.
Yes.
You know, the lines get a little bit blurred between when work time. Sometimes you start a little bit earlier than you actually should. You're finishing a little bit later than you should. How are you juggling that with 3 babies and 3 dogs and a wife?
Yes, there is balls that's going to drop. I think sort of it's making sure that when those balls drop, you actually see what you could do better out of it. But it is tough. It is tough. I think we're in silly season at the moment with payroll, so tax years, etc. So it's crazy. But it's I want to say communicating. There was a famous quote where somebody said, and I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this show, but there's a communicero get into shit type of thing. So it's communicate or don't get into crap. But it's constantly sort of communicating. And I think if you can communicate and just have like a massive calendar somewhere where you write everything down, you tend to not forget the important stuff.
Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit. Early inspiration. You mentioned 20 years in the payroll game, in the tech space. Is there any individual or any piece of tech that inspired you early on to go down this path that you've gone?
It's weird, because I think in payroll you don't pick payroll. Nobody that's in payroll said, I want to be in payroll. And if I think back to when we were selling VIP, it was like a small screen in the middle of your laptop. It didn't even look good. So inspiring, I think, like having, like, when you're working with great individuals, it actually inspires you to do better work. So I think sort of that opportunity to actually work with people that's also enjoying what they do, for me is quite inspiring. And if you've had it, you'll always chase it. So I think fortunate enough, again, to work in a culture and environment where there was a lot of motivation, learning, and people sort of just sticking together. and we've created that at Deel and at PaySpace. So it's just been sort of for me a game changer being in that environment again. But from there's always good leadership in those organizations that actually can take you and sort of shift your, I want to say, mindset to believe in the things we're actually chasing and sort of having a bigger purpose. And that it's not like finite and it's infinite, that you can actually just go after it forever.
Do you have a mentor, someone that you really rely on to help guide you through, difficult times?
I think,
or celebrate the wins as well. It's not just about
yeah.
difficult times.
The family for me is very important. I think going, bouncing stuff off my wife. She's quite practical, so that helps a lot. But I think I'm quite fortunate. There's a lot of people that I can actually push their button and say to them, "Listen, really give me an honest answer on this." It's weird because I think sometimes you could speak to somebody and they can tell you something and you just hear it from somebody else and you listen to that person. And why don't you listen to the first person? So not somebody specific. I think I tend to ask a couple of opinions and then formulate my own from that.
And now with the guys coming in from Deel, having that international experience, now you have a few other heads that you can lean on or actually rely on for certain aspects of your day-to-day.
Dude, like what they are doing is phenomenal. And I think, again, the position we've been in at PaySpace for the last 5 years has been phenomenal. I think sort of the growth, the experience we've gained, and now with Deel that's actually scaling and literally growing overnight into this unicorn is unreal. So it's a phenomenal journey just to see the way they're actually doing things and taking that and actually making it our own.
Okay. If there's one project that you've worked on over the last couple of years, looking back, looking into the present time, what's that standout project and most fulfilling in your career that you've worked on?
I must say, I really enjoyed my stint at Sage when we were sort of traveling throughout Africa.
Okay.
So it was unique in the way that we every second week flew up to a different country, needed to establish partners, needed to sell with partners, learning to take in different cultures, eating different types of pap and wors wherever we went into Africa. And then just having the opportunity to sort of, I want to say, learn new skills and presenting at these seminars and webinars. And I think just the experience in that, because it made such a big impact in my life. And I think sort of from a career perspective for the business as well as we established I think it was 18 countries and partners in each. And just that, I think that really, really helped me.
So when you say partners, you specifically, are you talking about accountants, or are you talking about just normal business owners that you partner with? What's your definition of partners in the PaySpace world?
So our partners is people that actually has an impact on the business. So if it doesn't have an influence, it's not worth sort of partnering with them. But if it's a partnership, for me, is something that you actually can influence both businesses. So it needs to be mutual and it needs to be win-win. So the story from a Sage perspective was people that could actually sell the product. And I think today from a PaySpace, we are looking for guys that are actually motivated and it is part of their core business. So if you wake up and you know it's going to make a difference in your business, you're willing to sort of spend time on that. So that's what we're looking for in partners. And it might be accountants, it might be sort of companies implementing ERPs or learning and development, etc.
All right. Earlier we touched on decision making, and you mentioned sometimes you take a little bit longer to get to a decision. How's your approach to making high stakes decisions, and what frameworks, if any, do you employ to get to your decision?
Uh, it is tough. There isn't, I think, for me, it's always been what's best for the company first,
Okay.
and then what's best for me, and then what's best for sort of the employee or the person. So that is sort of the common framework that I normally use, just to sort of make sure that I get different perspectives.
Mm,
Because if you take sort of the company first, you already have a different perspective on what they would have decided.
yeah.
And sort of combining those three will give you a good indication of, is this the right decision? And in your personal life, I think sort of there's a one where they say, if you're not willing to do it in front of your mom or your preacher, um, it's also not a good decision. So no, so those are sort of the two that I just use.
Mentioning your mom, you work very closely with your mom, and have been working closely with her over the last couple of years. What's that experience like?
Man, it's tough. But no, I think I'm very fortunate. She's a phenomenal woman, and
That
actually
she
have
is.
built herself up um, over the years. It's hard because I think we know exactly how to get on each other's nerves, and um, but we can also get the best out of each other, and
Yeah,
I think sort of it's sometimes good because we can be honest.
yeah.
Um, so that helps a lot, but it's not easy. I think sort of I think sometimes she uses the same decision framework, so she'll not necessarily help me.
Mm,
She'll actually make it difficult for in order for me to actually find different ways. But no, I think great mentor, great to bounce things off,
yeah.
great inspiration, and sort of phenomenal leader.
Overcoming setbacks, can you just give us some insight into how you sometimes deal with things that don't go as planned? What's the navigation, what's the strategies that you put into place to deal with setbacks mentally, emotionally? How do you not take these things home with you when setbacks that happen in the business world?
Yes, sir. And there is a lot of setbacks. I worked for a guy back in, I think, 2018, and he had a theory where he said in Afrikaans, "Bikkie bikkie baie." So it's a little,
Mm,
little, a lot, and it was quite. Uh, at some stage, I hated that, but over time, I sort of realized how much it actually mean, because sometimes in sales, it's it's a roller coaster. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down, and I think from a sales point of view, that's also helped me, because I know that it's not always going to be sort of the best of times.
yeah,
So if there was a setback in either not making my number, or a business that failed, lost a lot of money, um, flip and bought Bitcoin like at 12,000 and never kept it, things like that.
okay,
But no, so I think there's in anything in life, there's always a lesson, and flip at the end of the day, I think sort of something my mom always says is it something you're going to remember when you're 60 or 70 years old? If it's
yeah,
not, don't let it sort of hold you back.
okay, I like that. Um, Personal branding. Over the last, let's call it 3 years, you've gotten really active on LinkedIn, and I think I actually remember the post where you made that intention known to all your connections on the platform that I'm going to start posting more. I'm going to start being a little bit more active on this platform and sharing my experience over the last couple of years. How's that not only helped you in business, but how's that helped you from a personal brand perspective?
It's helped a hell of a lot.
Mm,
I think it's very difficult sort of being consistent
mm,
and making time for things like that. It's really sort of helped. I think you don't always know what you're going to get out of
mm,
doing something like personal branding,
mm,
because I think we see all these guys like Mr. Beast or
mm,
John Cena, that's sort of
mm,
phenomenal, and
mm,
the things that they get up to is just on a different scale, or like sports stars like Bob Skins, but they just on a different level. And I think what's helped me is accumulating slowly, sort of people. You get to get like interesting takes on your inbox where people are asking for advice, and it sometimes feels good, to
yeah,
sort of give that back. So from a business perspective, it's opened up a lot of doors for us. Just from
yeah,
a professional side, I think for our business, the outreach that we've enabled through LinkedIn is literally giving us 3 to 6 opportunities a month. So it is phenomenal in that. And like LinkedIn is the Facebook of the business world. So if you're not doing it on LinkedIn, there isn't another platform at this stage. So it's really been, I want to say, good for business. I
yeah.
think it's good for a brand, and it's worth it. Sort of investing time in it.
Do you encourage that in your team to, be a little bit more out there when it comes to their personal branding, their interaction with their clients, and making sure that, you're a thought leader and you need to actually post a little bit more about things that you're doing? Is that something that you encourage them to do, or is it, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't, don't.
Like any person, I want to say a sales business, everything is encouraging. Yes, I ask them to sort of get more out there and sort of display it and get into their inboxes. But
Yep.
I think about 30% of our work is outbound. So
Mm,
just getting in that mindset of connecting with different people, and there's clever ways where maybe you've sold to somebody, had a phenomenal service, and just asking them to write like a recommendation. I think sort of we tend to not document the process. We
mm,
tend to sort of live through this world and not actually highlight the milestones of things we go through.
mm.
And if there's any advice to that perspective, is literally documenting the process. Is sort of just saying what you're doing, because that's people connect with people, and that's sort of the brand that you should be building is yourself. But yes,
Do
I
you
try and sort of motivate them, but I think like time in anybody's life is just making that time. It's the hardest part.
Are there any like business networks that you belong to, or belonged to while you were here in Gauteng?
Not necessarily, I want to say, a business network. I really, really enjoyed Mark Sham's Suits and Sneakers. So
Suits
I
and
used to
sneakers. Yeah, yeah,
go to those events quite often.
yeah. Okay.
There's a guy called Renier Lombard. I think it's called the Lekker Network. He's
Okay.
also doing something similar. So really, really um, uh, enjoying his content and what he's doing. And man, what was the guy? He also had something where he had like small businesses, Marines. The name has just gone out, but I enjoy sort of meetups with small business owners and
Yeah.
businesses, just to sort of see things they're going through, and uh, difficulties, and successes that they're actually achieving. So those sort of networks for me was quite nice, but nothing specific that I think subscribe to, if I can put it like
Okay.
that. Oh.
Earlier, we touched on culture, how the PaySpace culture is merging with the Deel culture, and it's just this amalgamation of synergies, and it just seems to work. What do you believe is the key ingredients to building a strong and motivated team in today's, remote working environment where we're not really spending that much time with our teams personal, in front of each other. We're doing remote meetings. You in Cape Town, some of your guys are sitting in Joburg. How do you build a strong, motivated team in today's age?
It needs to be top down. There needs to be a clear vision of where you're going. Good incentives. And I think the vision and sort of that mission ties back to what you're doing. And if you really believe in what you're doing, it's quite easy to sort of get that out. So
those two things, like the company's mission and vision and the company's culture, those two things are intrinsically linked. If one is clear, you'd have a clear culture and something that is easily recognizable from the man on the street.
Exactly. And realizing it's not just certain people getting the shine. I think sort of we've got developers, legislation, support, consulting, all doing phenomenal work. And if I think sort of if that just comes together, it actually makes a phenomenal culture. Although it's sort of remote, it helps us just stay motivated.
What role does technology and the AI? We're talking about AI now, and that's the new buzzword in our industries. What role does AI technology play in making sure that your team is as motivated and growing consistently as possible?
I'm again a very big early adopter. I think sort of I was one of the first paid subscribers on ChatGPT, but I think there's so much that we can do to enable ourselves with AI. So I'm a very strong believer in sort of utilizing the stuff that is available and accelerating the work you do, or brainstorming, or having good ideas. So it's a very interesting topic because there's cool things that you can actually get out of AI. If it's images, if it's automation, if it's just like simple brainstorming. But yeah, for me, it's literally just been using as many tools as I can and sort of seeing what again works for me. Because I tend to not be very detailed, so sort of leaving things and really going to the detail. Like AI can sometimes point out sort of gaps for me. So that's for me. It's very cool about sort of just having this superhuman that you could actually prompt, and using the human element of that, and then making it. I want to say combined information that you can actually use in life and work and flip.
Oh, you actually used ChatGPT to create my background.
Yeah, and it looks cool. Like I must say, I'm like I said, a paid member, but I've also played now with this DeepSeek, and it's really phenomenal. So
tell me about that DeepSeek. I haven't yet delved into it in I haven't even looked into it. What is the whole buzz around that? I know that it's the cost to actually bring it to life was far cheaper than our Chat GPT and the image generators that we would come to know. Tell us a little bit more, if you do know a little bit more about, DeepSeek and what they're all about.
So I know they've got like a whale logo.
Yeah.
No, but now so from a I think from a usability, I've tested now using sort of Grok,
Okay.
DeepSeek, and ChatGPT, and it's similar answers, and something that for me was a little bit different is like DeepSeek actually writes a little prompt before it gives you an answer, and that was for me quite cool, because I think when ChatGPT came out, we needed to think about the way that you were giving it a question, or the format, the way you wanted the information, etc. Where DeepSeek
Mm.
actually takes your question and create its own prompt, and then
Okay.
utilize that information. And that was for me very interesting, because I think everybody said you need to be like a prompt engineer and learn prompting, and now they've changed it a little bit, where it will take your question or your information you're looking for and prompt on your behalf. And it
Okay.
might not always be like 100% accurate, but it's still, again, showing you different ways to ask a question. And I think
Mm.
that's very important. So no, I think use them all, test them, see what works for you.
Yeah, that's good. That's one of the biggest, disruptors in our modern time. You know, these AI generators or these AI um, models that are being created. What have you, besides that, witnessed over the last couple of years from a disruption perspective? You've been in the game for some time now. I think you come from a desktop world. You made that transition into cloud. How did you make that adjustment? How did your team make that adjustment? And how did the company itself? Because you mentioned earlier you were at VIP and now you're at PaySpace. What were the changes that you guys adopted to deal with the disruption and the introduction of things like cloud technology?
So I think the first time it really sort of was a big disruption for me was 2020,
Mm,
with the virus and just going online. And when I was a very in-office person, wanting to see everybody. That's how you work. And I think sort of the first time we actually had a full remote and everybody needed to work remotely, it was massively disruptive for me, because for the first time I couldn't work for my team in open space. So it
mm,
was interesting, because I think we saw that through tech you could actually do things remotely,
mm,
and that for me was a massive insight, just in how much more we can do without
mm,
physically being at a location. So that's probably been the most significant way I've had an impact or a change to the
mm,
way we do things. And the everything else for me has been accelerators. And you were doing a certain thing in a certain way, and we launched this, and it improved that. If I take, for instance, leave forms. When I started working, we had a leave form where you had to physically fill out a leave form, take that leave form to your manager. Your manager goes to HR, and sometimes you were lucky to see it on your payslip. Sometimes, but the piece of paper got away, some leave days.
mm.
But that transition was also quite big. Uh, it's difficult to say, but I think sort of technology for me, it's been probably seeing paper go away. I still love paper,
Mm.
making notes, etc. But like paper going away, being able to do what we're doing now without
Yeah,
sitting in Gauteng, me sitting in the Western Cape, um, and it just doesn't need to be in like South Africa. You can do it on a global scale.
yeah,
So I think with the technologies like this AI and being able to create like videos and things like that, I think the world hasn't been easier to have tools like this available that you could literally do anything. You just need to think I don't want to say out of the box, but you just need to
Yeah.
think differently.
Okay.
Well,
What sort of legacy do you hope to leave personally? You know, thinking 20 years from now, 40 years from now, how do we want, or how does Heinrich want to be remembered in this industry? Not only you personally, but also the brand that you work for. I'm almost assuming that you would be at PaySpace for quite some time. You love the brand. I don't think you're going anywhere. What sort of legacy do you hope that your organization and yourself leave your community and your industry?
I would love to see it if we can become really the first payroll that's doing global payroll,
Okay.
and being able to have a single platform where payroll, HR is everything on one central thing, and it's not different systems being used.
One
Uh,
user interface that
one
everybody's
user
using.
interface, a single source of truth.
Okay.
And I think payroll has always been dull. Like people flip and think payroll's boring, but we're at a stage where nobody ever complains if you're getting your payslip, but as soon as that payslip's incorrect, you complain. So it's
Yeah.
being very accurate, being very on time, and the way in which people are getting paid is also quite a game changer, because we're seeing people that's getting things like early wage access, and working for every hour that you work, you actually get remunerated. So it's an interesting space, because I think those calculations and that way of work's getting faster. So it's interesting to see the future. But I think for me, the most significant thing probably in the next 5 years will be to sort of have a system that we've got close to more than half of the countries on a single system and paying out of a single system.
And on a personal level, looking ahead, what would you like to achieve as Heinrich Swanepoel?
It's people that's got children. I think sort of that's probably one of the biggest blessings, is having kids.
Yeah.
I think being a grandpa and teaching my kid to smoke. And no, I'm just kidding. No, so I think maybe having the privilege of being a grandpa would be quite
Okay.
cool. Well,
On that note, thank you so much, buddy, for your time, for your expertise. Anything interesting going on in your life, please let us know. And yeah, hope to see you on episode 100. And thank you so much for sharing. Have a good day.
thank you, Jeanette. I've
Thank you,
really
my man.
enjoyed it.
Enjoying it too.